This week I got to talk with Amanda Jones, who is a librarian and the author of That Librarian, The Fight Against Book Banning in America. If you hadn't heard her story, I hadn't either until I listened to her audiobook. And she is basically a bookish hero and an advocate for the marginalized people and subjects that a lot of people don't want in libraries anymore. Here is the official synopsis. Part memoir, part manifesto, the inspiring story of a Louisiana librarian advocating for inclusivity on the front lines of our vicious culture wars. One of the things small-town librarian Amanda Jones values most about books is how they can affirm a young person's sense of self. So in 2022, when she caught wind of a local public hearing that would discuss book content, she knew what was at stake. Schools and libraries nationwide have been bombarded by demands for books with LGBTQ+ references, discussions of racism, and more to be purged from the shelves. Amanda would be damned if her community were to ban stories representing minority groups. She spoke out that night at the meeting. Days later, she woke up to a nightmare that is still ongoing. Amanda Jones has been called a groomer, a pedo, a porn pusher. She has faced death threats and attacks from strangers and friends alike. Her decision to support a collection of books with diverse perspectives made her a target for extremists using book banning campaigns funded by dark money organizations and advanced by hard-right politicians in a crusade to make America more white, straight, and Christian. But Amanda Jones wouldn't give up without a fight. She sued her harassers for defamation and urged others to join her in the resistance. Mapping the book banning crisis occurring all across the nation, That Librarian draws the battle lines in the war against equity and inclusion, calling book lovers everywhere to rise in defense of our readers. Her story is harrowing for sure. The town that she grew up in and had served as an educator for 2 decades, people in that town were turning on her because of this false information that was being spread about her. On the flip side, her commitment to protecting the books in the library and fighting against book bans is so commendable and so inspiring. I respect her so much for not backing down, and I felt very lucky to get to talk to her. We discuss why it is so important to have diverse representation in books, which you know is something that I've been passionate about for years. We talk about this new, I would call it an epidemic of thinking that empathy can be toxic. And we talk about how scary it was for her to be getting these death threats, specifically some saying that they were going to come to where she worked with children with a gun. You've heard me talk about how much I hate book bans and how concerned I am that we're to this place in society already. But this conversation with Amanda, while parts of it did infuriate me, also gave me a lot of hope and really reminded me that we have to find each other. The good people have to find each other right now because we've got to find a way to hold on to hope still. That being said, let's hear from Amanda. I am here with Amanda Jones, who is That Librarian, which is actually the title of her book too. But I am so excited to talk to you. The book banning, the censorship, it's gotten out of control. And your book was just giving me hope that we still have people out there who want access to books. So thanks so much for fighting for it and for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's not something I like talking about, but
Right.
I wish we didn't have to deal with it. But I am always up for trying to explain what's happening to people and maybe hopefully help other people get informed so that we can come out of this in the next few, hopefully the next few years.
Yes, totally. Well, I kind of wanted to start way at the beginning. I remember hearing I listened to your book, that you were kind of always interested in being in a librarian, or even in your undergrad, you were trying to take classes for it. So can you talk about what made you want to be a librarian and your journey toward that?
So I always joke and say I was raised on the street, like Sesame Street. Sesame Street and Reading Rainbow were and Mr. Rogers were huge parts of my life growing up. And, they always talked about books, especially LeVar Burton and Reading Rainbow. And I've always been, interested in reading. And my mom's a retired kindergarten teacher. So she surrounded us with books. and she would load up the station wagon and the minivan, whatever we had at the time, and get friends. And she'd take us to the library, like public library, every single week. We had a very rich set of books at home. And so I just always loved to read. And when I got older, um, my tastes were different, but I was lucky enough to have a wonderful high school librarian who also connected me to great books. And
Mm.
then when I was in college, I went to be an elementary school teacher. And while I was in elementary education, the first three Harry Potter books came out. And I remember just seeing on the Rosie O'Donnell show, seeing her say, "Oh, there's these new books that are out." And um, I read the first three, zipped through them in a few days. And I thought, this is great. This is what the publishing world needs for kids lit. And it just reignited that
Mm.
passion I had of reading. Again, different thoughts on the author now,
I
but
know.
at the
I think
time,
that's like that for a lot of us.
yeah, and I will say the work still, the books I still think are magical, and even if
Mhm.
the author's not, but it reignited that passion that I had growing up for reading. And I just remember in my 20s as an undergrad, I didn't know what master's degrees were. I didn't, because I was the first person in my family to get one, and I took special permission to take the library science graduate courses as an undergrad.
Mhm.
Because I just knew I want to be a librarian one day, and how do I get there? And
Mhm.
so I did what I had to do, and
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I was hired at the same middle school that I attended as a child, and it's a mile from my
Yeah.
home, and I've been there for 25 years. So I
Yeah.
really lucked out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so like knowing because you I think you said you lived in the house like next door to your childhood
I
home
still
and
do.
okay, and then you're like getting to like teach and be a librarian in that community that it's really powerful you were able to do that all kind of in that same community. Um
And it's a very
and then
small community too, by the way. Like we're very,
yeah.
I mean, considering we have two red lights and we're not
Yeah.
even an incorporated town. And so, it's a very small community. So where I work, I'm the only middle school librarian. Like
Mm,
every kid in my community will have me, whether that's a good
yeah.
thing or a bad thing, considering what camp you're in. But I will have every kid in my community. And what's really cool now after 25 years is that I have a lot of grant students. So
That's so cool.
kids that are the children of kids that I taught. So
Mhm.
and my husband went to my school as a child, and my child
Yeah.
went there. She's graduated now, and it's just a wonderful place to live and work for the most part.
Yes, yeah. It is important to focus on like what you're saying. Like for the most part, there's like a lot of good to all of that. And what what kind of kickstarted this journey that now is in your book as well. I like kept getting mad just listening to it, of course. But it's like for people who don't know, you essentially just talked about book banning in general and like relocating books to different sections in the library and how that's like something that you can always do. You can always kind of bring that up, but you basically talked about it at a library board meeting and like lies from like just grew from that. So can you kind of talk about like what you were wanting to just say at this board meeting, and then we can kind of get into the negativity that happened after.
Yeah, I've been a library card holder since I was 5 years old in my local community. I'm
Hmm.
47 now, so a very
Mm,
long time. So, like, I am a community member. I've lived here my whole life. And so I went
right.
to my public library. I'm a school librarian, but I went to my public library to defend policies and procedures that we already had in place.
Hmm.
Because the general public, they don't realize that all libraries have collection development policies and plans for if a community member doesn't like a book, there's a reconsideration form you can fill out. And I agree. I think that's very important. That's every community member's right. So what I went to do, we saw in our community an outside extremist group started
Hmm.
posting about our library. People that didn't live and work in our community started posting pages of books out of context and saying that we had inappropriate books in the library. So what I hope to achieve by attending the very first library board meeting I went to was to say, look, That's not happening. First of all, there's no inappropriate books in children's sections of our library, but there we have policies and procedures. So if you don't like it, hey, fill out a form and just follow the procedure, and let's go from there. We don't need to have this big hubbub about it. And but also,
Right.
I did talk about how censorship is wrong, in my opinion, and what I believe it goes against the Constitution, and our all the amendments and things that the
Yeah.
history of our country. And that's all I talked about was policies and procedures and censorship. I never spoke about any particular book or anything
Hmm.
like that. And then, but the extremist group didn't like
Yeah.
that I had gotten. They thought it was going to be a walk in the park. They were going to come in and dictate what we were going to do, and they were going to,
Hmm.
cost us funding like they'd done to other area library systems across Louisiana.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, you're not coming into my community. So they didn't like
Yeah.
that. So that someone from that organization and another man who he's friends with chose to create horrible, false, provably false memes about me and spread them all
Right.
around my community. And what happened was that people I've known my whole life just suddenly started believing what they saw on the internet from two men that I had never spoken to, still haven't ever spoken to, don't know them, had never interacted with them in any way.
Hmm.
But people that I've known my whole life decided to pile on and believe what these men were saying about me. It didn't matter that I had worked in my community at the time 22 years, a stellar record as an educator. I've won awards and grants for my school. None of that mattered. All that
Yeah.
mattered was what two strangers said about me on the internet. And that's
Right.
kind of still 3.5 years later. That's kind of still how I am and what's happened in this community.
Oh my gosh. That's what it was making me think about too as I was reading it. Like obviously no one should be getting death threats in any like way, shape or form. But we do know that happens sometimes from like keyboard warriors, from bots at this point, like who even knows what it's coming from. But like at the beginning of your story, when you're like it was the people you knew, which is like almost worse, I would feel like, because you're having to like see these people in person who are just believing all of this stuff versus like just like, not that I'm excusing a typical internet troll, but it's so much different than just someone who you like don't even know.
It was wild to me, and it's still wild to me, and it still happens to this day. In fact, I woke up this morning to a comment from a former student, and this is someone
Uh,
and he's an adult now; he's almost 30, and I'm thinking, you were one of my favorites, and we
uh,
we had a great teacher-student relationship, and like I don't,
mhm.
and I'm like, what are you talking about? And
Yeah.
it shows the how horrible of a hold social media can have
Mhm.
on and propaganda and lies can have on people that can make you can have an experience with someone and know someone their whole life and then it just can change, or maybe that's
Yes.
human nature, maybe we're just fickle people, I don't know. I
I
can't,
don't, yeah.
I
Yeah,
haven't
I
been able to wrap my brain around all of this. It's been
I-
4 years,
the
but still.
there's so much
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance to all of it is what's very confusing for me as well. And you kind of pointed out too, like, and where actually you did now, like the First Amendment rights, freedom of speech is one that like a lot, I'm saying this administration or in general Christian nationalists is kind of the big part, where like in a lot of cases they will defend themselves and people who agree with them and are so hardcore for freedom of speech, and then at the same time are some of the loudest people trying to get books banned. It doesn't make any sense to me. I've been trying to like, I've had a few moments like you're talking about too, where I'm like, I've known you for a really long time and did not expect you to believe or act like this, and now you're acting like this. And so it's so confusing because it just doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't. And you said you touched on Christian nationalism, and so and
Yeah.
it is that's what it is, and that's what we're
Mhm.
seeing, especially in my community. And
Mhm.
these people, I say these people, this is my neighbors and my friends and former friends. Some of them,
Right.
like um, they're all for the First Amendment for their rights to speak,
Mhm.
but they want to push their thoughts and their ideologies on other people,
Mhm.
and so my community is a very Christian majority community, and I'm still a Christian. But I
Mhm.
don't ever want to push my beliefs on anyone
Right.
else.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like, you will believe me. I'm reminded there's a movie with Mandy Moore. I wish I could remember the name of it. She's like, and the power of the Christ you will listen to the power of Christ. And she throws a Bible at him. And I'm like, that
Yes.
is so not Christ-like. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I, just, I'm very angry at people who have taken over my religion and pushed it to be
Right.
harmful,
Mm-hmm.
to other people, and to ostracize and other people in their communities. But it's First Amendment for me, but not thee, is what I
Mm-hmm.
call it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask about that because I grew up, I'm like a pastor's kid essentially. And I kind of deconstructed and moved away from Christianity for a really long time. And then I felt even more kind of convicted in that recently. And then I had like this year has kind of been this almost like second deconstruction where I'm like learning the wide variety of interpretation that exists in Christianity. And I don't know what I think about the afterlife at this point, but when I just focus on what Jesus says, I'm pretty on board with the things Jesus said. So can you kind of talk about how like in some ways I think from the vibe I was getting, like the way you practice your Christianity is about inclusiveness.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way my community taught me to be.
Right.
I mean, I am a product of my community, which is so wild to me that now they would
Mhm.
turn and say I'm woke for the beliefs, because I'm like, I have the beliefs that you raised me on,
Right.
which is, it's just this disconnect.
Mhm.
I was raised, if we weren't at the library, we were at church, and
Mhm.
I was raised Southern Baptist, and I have a lot of thoughts on the current Southern Baptist Convention, but
Right.
at the heart of it, we went to Bible school and Sunday school, and we were raised. The most important lessons was that, love thy neighbor as thyself, and be a
Mhm.
good Samaritan, and
Mhm.
champion the underdog. And those were the lessons. Like, it was drilled into my head that we must love one another, and that Jesus was, um, a teacher of the sick and the weak and the, I
Mm.
mean, he hung out with prostitutes.
Right.
I
Right.
learned that as a kid. I mean, I learned the word prostitute 5 or 6 years
Yes.
old. But it was
Yeah.
like,
And Jezebels,
yeah,
yeah.
Jezebels. And I was actually Jezebel for Halloween when I was little.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's, I, what happened to these people? They will tell you that
Yeah.
I'm now woke, but I will say
Right.
that I've always been awake and that they're asleep. I don't know.
Yes.
Like, these lessons that they taught me, I'm thankful for them. I just
Yeah.
wonder why they don't practice what they preach.
Right. Yeah. And for anyone, I've been talking about Christian nationalism a decent amount this year, but for anyone who maybe is like just landing on this, like a big part of that, like you've discussed, like this version of Christianity, I kind of say with quotation marks, that has developed is like very much about restricting the rights of certain people. And like you're saying, like really pushing your belief system on other people. So that's kind of like the delineation we're basically making is like there's this version that's like very misogynistic, very xenophobic, like does not want to take care of the stranger, versus like there's some people who really follow like the red words of the Bible or what Jesus was saying and what he did.
It's, one of the, in my community, people would say one of the best, if you can be a best Christian,
Mm-hmm.
in our community is one of our state senators.
Mm.
And she is constantly posting, Jesus is King and Lord of Lords. And then the next post, and we will rid everyone of the, and then slur.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like, you
Yeah.
can't post God is love, and in the next post,
Mm-hmm.
post something lies. I don't,
Right.
there's like, how did, I don't, and then I wonder, okay, is there really a disconnect? Is she really that, or is she just that
Right.
hateful, or is she getting paid as a politician to be this way?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but either way, choosing to post things like that, you
Yeah.
and we're all human. I mean,
Right.
I say let's be kind, and I've posted ugly things sometimes, like,
Right.
I don't agree with this. This woman's foolish. But I'll admit that's not when I'm being Christ-like. And so
Right.
I there's a
He
lot
did
of,
flip tables
yeah,
when people were
yeah.
being manipulated and treated poorly.
And I think, even no matter what, if you're a Christian or not a Christian, at the heart of it, we're all humans and we should all love one another, regardless of
I agree.
religion, regardless of socioeconomic status and
Mm-hmm.
race and gender. And we should all love one
Yeah.
another. That doesn't mean we have to like each other, but we should all be
No.
respectful and kind and cognizant
Yes.
that it takes all sorts of people to make the world go round. Because otherwise, what a boring world we would live in.
Totally. Yeah. You talk about the importance of like including queer stories, and that's something they get really hung up on wanting to remove. And it's just so harmful because that is people's lives and they're not seeing themselves represented. And you had a really powerful story where you said like a student came up to you and even said like, my mom told me that like you're a safe person. Can you? I'm like about to start crying telling the story. We're two criers.
Me too.
And so then you were able to help her like read stuff, or I don't know what gender it was actually, find stuff to read that made that person feel seen. So can you like talk about like why books are so important for that reason?
Yeah, I think something that really stood out to me was a study by the Human Rights Coalition, and I talk about it all the time about how it reported in the study that so many kids, students from the LGBTQ plus community feel so unsafe at school and so just scared. But 9 out of 10 in that same study said that they feel safest in the school library.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a huge responsibility because I do teach every kid in the community, or I will if you come through our school, and I want every kid to feel loved and seen and heard. And we have more than white, straight, cisgender kids at our school, regardless of what anyone wants to say.
Yeah.
And we have kids that have 2 moms and kids that have 2 dads, or
Right.
whatever. They come from different backgrounds, and just like we have kids from all races, and every one of those kids deserves to see their stories reflected on the shelves. And so to remove a book because it has 2 moms, or because the author is queer, what is that saying to those kids that either are
Yes.
from the community themselves or if their families are? It tells them that they don't deserve a place in our community. And I will not have any kid in our community feel that they do not belong, or that someone in their family doesn't belong. And people make fun of me for saying that. And I don't care if
Yeah.
they make fun of me for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I'm in a
I
documentary.
would prefer that be the only thing people could find to make fun of me for.
I mean, and that's all they can at this point, But
Yep.
I'm in a documentary, and there's a clip that's been like rotating around my community of a scene from me from the documentary, crying and saying, I don't want any of my LGBTQ students to feel ostracized or feel they have to move from our community. And some people were making fun of me, like, oh, that's not a thing that's happening. I had multiple former students message me saying, it's me, and you protected me.
Yeah.
So sorry, now I'm crying.
You are okay.
So like, I know, I don't care what other people think of me. I know that there are kids that have felt safe and that have not been made. Like, I know in my heart that I'm doing the right thing because I have these kids that are not kids anymore. They're in their 30s now, not being contacted by minors.
Right.
But, that tell me that thank you for standing up for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. There's something that I always think of, like the quote that says like, be who you needed when you were younger. And I feel like that kind of fits under all of this, is like everyone deserves that safe space. I have a friend who, he was on the podcast actually here recently too, and he talked about he grew up, I think in Alabama is what he said, somewhere in the South, and he's queer, and he felt the exact same way, that like the library was the place that he felt the safest. He could just spend time there, like the librarians would help him find stuff. And stories in general are so important to me. Obviously that's why I even have a whole podcast about it, because it's even like my experience. I grew up like very much in the bubble that was like, we're in the world but not of the world. So like I did not get to consume anything secular until I was basically like 18. And so once I did, I was like, oh my gosh, like I actually understood why they wanted to keep so much from me, because it's easier to control someone with limited knowledge or doesn't know about a lot of stuff. And then hearing other stories that I would connect with, I'd be like, oh, this helps me understand myself as well. So I just, books are, they're just so important for so many different reasons, like the empathy you get from like being in a character's head for such an extended period of time. Like fiction can be just as much empathy building as nonfiction can be. It's just, it's so important to have those spaces.
And I think part of being a good librarian, because I always want to be the best librarian I can be, is listening to
Yeah.
your students or your patrons, whether, if you're a public librarian, you listen to your patrons. And my students were telling me, Miss Jones, I want to see more of this, and I want to see more than that, more of that. And that doesn't mean that I am getting books that are not age relevant. All the books in my school library are professionally reviewed as age relevant, age appropriate for my students. But there are topics that they want to learn more about. And I remember even several years back, some of my students that were African American, they said, Miss Jones, we're glad that we see that you have diverse books in here. These kids actually said this. However, we need to tell you that you're doing something wrong. I was like, what am I doing wrong? I was like, tell me. They said it's all the books that look with characters that look like us are about the civil rights period or slavery.
Yep.
I was like, oh. So I listened, because I think that's what a good librarian or a good educator does. You listen. So I focused on Black joy. Yes. And not even also books of white, but books that just the characters just happen to be Black.
Just existing.
It was just existing. And to me, that's important. And when you listen, you learn, and when you learn, you do better. And so, but there are people that don't like that I have books with Black characters. And so I'm not going to change that because some ignorant fool, some homophobic or racist person that is not even a parent of a child at my school, you don't let them dictate, what other kids, how they feel in my library.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that story is so important. It was because it was making me think too, how I didn't know, I wasn't aware growing up that there are so many people's experiences I wasn't reading about. And I really wasn't as aware as I am now until kind of like the last 2 or 3 years. I've just been reading more experiences. And what matters to me so much with people is ignorance in general. I think it's so important to realize ignorance in general is not malicious. And for me, what in conversations I have now with people, what matters is like when you are confronted with new information, how do you handle it? And I think that's what's really powerful about your story. I thought it was really powerful that you shared as well, just like all of these things that you weren't aware of, but once you became aware of it, you're like, oh, okay, now I can notice, like, oh, I don't have stories of like Black children just existing in the world, essentially. And I think that's what becomes so important, is like when you're given new information, even if it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, what do you do once you have it?
And I think that's part of the problem nowadays, is that people don't want to admit that they don't know things. They don't want to admit when they're wrong. And you get stuck in this, you think life is one way, and then you learn that things are more nuanced or different than you originally thought. And you can go either way. You can choose to be a better person and learn, or you can choose to bury your head in the sand. And as someone who has taught thousands of children and hopefully will teach thousands of more, but even more importantly to me, I have my own child, and I want her, I want to set a good example for her. And I want her to go out into the world and learn, build upon the things that I've learned and even learn even more, become even,
Yes.
become a better person than me,
Yes.
so that's what I hope for. It's
Mhm.
sad to me that people stick their heads in the sand, because my life is only increased tenfold, thousands
Right.
upon thousands of percent better from knowing other people and knowing about other people and their experiences. And
Yeah.
I will go back and credit to this day Dr. Shirley McDonald, my high school librarian, who first put "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings" into my
Mm.
hands. And she
Mhm.
first put "Angela's Ashes" into my hands. And she put The Bone Setter, I think it was either The Bone Setter's Daughter or Joy Luck Club, in
Mm.
my hands. And
Yeah.
I realized, oh, there's so much more out there, these experiences that I
Yes.
don't know about, that I
Yeah.
need to learn
I
about.
The other thing I was talking to my husband about this yearbook and book banning in general, and I was like, there's even I have like some version of a hot take that I haven't totally settled on, but I was like, in the arguments for reading diversely, and you touch on this too, some white people, white straight people especially, think they're oppressed when inclusivity is encouraged, which just like, again, that's cognitive dissonance for me. I'm like, those two things are not related. But even in this conversation about reading more diversely, selfishly, it's more interesting to be like reading books in different places and in different cultures and hearing different perspectives. Like, even if you're not doing it in the way that some people would call you woke, which like not an insult really. Um even if you're not doing it for that reason, even just selfishly, it can be more fun to be reading a variety of experiences.
And that's what I feel. I feel so sorry for people who close their minds off.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for the kids, but it also it works two ways though, because I will also recognize that that's those parents' choice to raise their kids that way. And
Right.
I feel sorry for kids that have to grow up that
Yes.
way, but I don't want anybody telling my kid how to read, or what to
Right.
read, or who to be. Um, but I think what gets lost is that when you're censoring books, you're not just saying, I don't want my own kid to read this. You're also saying, and then no one else's kid should be able to read this as well. And that's
Yes.
where I draw the line, because you absolutely have the right to tell your own child, and look,
Yeah.
your kid, you can pay for the therapy for that kid later down the road.
Yes.
And when they estrange themselves from you, because that's on you. But
Yep. That's
nobody,
yep.
you can't tell me, and I'm not going to tell other people. Just like I think we should all have diverse literature in the library, but I'm not going to tell a parent your kid has to read that diverse
Mm.
literature. They
No.
can read whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what sticks out to me so much with a lot of control, but also with like censorship and book banning is exactly what you're saying. It's like this can exist here and you don't have to consume it. Like that's fine. Like don't do it. It's this kind of the same way I'm like you hear people sometimes say like you don't like gay marriage, you don't have to get gay married. Like that's kind of how it pretty much goes, but I also thought the point that you brought up that like some of these parents who are the most worried about what happens to exist in the library are parents of children who have phones. Like they are able to connect to the internet.
what's ironic about that is that I pointed that out.
Yeah.
I actually did an entire lesson, school-wide
Mm-hmm.
lesson at my school on internet safety. And do you
Mm.
know, I was attacked for that as well.
Oh my gosh.
By
Like
the
it's what
same
they're trying to
people, they
oh,
tried to get me fired.
oh.
Legit tried, the same exact people who who didn't like me talking about freedom to read. When
Mm-hmm.
I said I did a whole lesson on, hey, this is what these kids are saying that they're seeing on the internet. We need to be concerned. And then I taught the kids about how to block. I'm like, block and report to your parents and tell a trusted adult. They didn't like that
Mm-hmm.
either. So I'm thinking
Oh my
it's not
gosh.
about protecting the children, because if you were really worried about connecting protecting children, you would join me on this and agree with me on this internet
Mm-hmm.
issue and these
Yes.
phones. They just want to gripe about everything. And it's not
Yeah.
about protecting children. And that right there showed me that it's more about control, and it's not about real, actual protecting children. And especially because also, in addition to not wanting me to teach internet safety, the way they go about their opposition to what I believe in is that they've tried to destroy me. Right. They try to destroy me, and they scream at me in public, tell me I'm going to hell. My favorite was God's going to wrap a millstone around my neck and drown me in the pits of hell. They quoted a Bible verse. Multiple times that has happened to me. It's kind of like they got together and decided we're going to use this one verse to really be offensive to everyone. But they lie about me. And what kind of example is that to attack your child's teacher or librarian?
Exactly.
What is happening? Like, that's not protecting children either. So those people have I no longer think about them anymore. No. And I just focus on the good. And that's just noise in the background. That says a lot about them. That says nothing about me. Right. So let them gripe in the background. Let them gripe on Facebook. Let them call me what they want to call me. I know what I'm about. And it took me 3.5 years to get to that point, but I know what I'm about now. And
I mean, sometimes it takes longer than that. So that's pretty quick.
I'm proud. I am the person I was raised to be. I'm proud of who I am. And no one is ever going to let me dull my sparkle again. I wrote about that in the book a kid gave me. I used to tell that to a kid all the time. Don't let anybody dull your sparkle, because she was being bullied. And as an adult, she came back and she gave me a sign that says, don't. And so I have it in my library. And she reminded me, you don't let anybody dull your sparkle, Miss Jones. Yes. And so I no longer allow that to happen anymore.
Yeah. Yes. And again, like, it's worth talking about these people, but I also am trying to not give them the biggest attention in what we're talking about. But what you're talking about with them lying about you too, there was just so much online hate. People were saying you were a groomer. It's important to notice that note again that the speech you gave had no books listed in general. Like, it was not that's all you need to know. There were no books that were mentioned, and it like turned into this thing of them being like, you're a groomer, you're teaching children, like I think 6-year-olds or 11-year-olds about anal sex. Like,
yes,
not what was happening.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, one man said that I give pornography and erotica to 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds, and then he produced a book called Let's Talk About It that was not mentioned at the meeting. I had never even heard of it. Nobody talked about the meeting. I didn't talk about it. And then he started putting pictures of it saying she wants to show kids. I'm like, where did that even come from? And then another man posted a picture of my face and said, I advocate the teaching of anal sex to 11-year-olds, which is not anything that had anything to do with my speech, and nothing I would ever do. And I will say that since this has happened, that man has issued a public apology to me.
Oh, wow.
He was forced to. It was of that. I mean, I sued the two men that targeted and harassed me. I sued them for defamation, and I am still in a lawsuit with one of them. But one of them did come to his senses. He came to his senses, and he said, he offered to settle with me, and I was not going to take any money. And all I said, yes, I will settle with you, even though what he did was horrific to me and caused me great physical and mental pain.
Right.
His apology will never wipe away.
No.
But he did publicly apologize, so I no longer speak about him, except to say he did apologize. And so I've moved on from him and that pain. But what is funny is that the negative, not funny but funny strange to me, was that the meme he created was shown thousands of times around my community, and the apology he issued was not.
Of course, yeah.
So, but that's okay, because again, like I said, I know what I'm about. And he did have to apologize. He did, and we settled out of court, and that's done. And so I'm going to move on from that, and I learned a lot of lessons. And again, that's more about him than me. But these awful things. Like teachers and librarians, school, because I'm a public school educator, and we don't go into our fields because we want to harm children. We go in it because we want to make a
No.
difference. And we
Mm-hmm.
don't get paid very much for making a difference or
No.
trying to make a difference. And so to then further, like these people, educators and school librarians who go into our fields just wanting to make change, to suddenly just start attacking and belittling, and it's just so wild to me. It's so
It
wild.
is. It really is. And uh like you're saying, like it's never gonna, his apology is never gonna make up for the fact that, like, what stood out to me when you were talking about it too is like it, like death threats were happening, and like someone even said something along the lines of like, we know where you live, and click click, like
Yep.
alluding to guns essentially.
Yes.
uh
We know where
and
you
that
live and work. You have a large target on your back. See you soon. Beep. Click click. Like,
and it's like anyone
yeah.
who's making fun of you for crying, for having a reaction, part of it was even you're like, I work with children, like you were like having to live with that fear as well, that like there were children around you all the time, even when you're at home, like it's your home, but then your husband, your child, um
Well,
it
my
like
my own child went to
absolutely
my school.
important.
My nieces and nephews go to my school. But
Yeah.
even that, like, but I love every kid that goes to my school, and
Right.
they're putting children in the mix and saying,
Yes.
you know, we know where you live and work. I work around children, and
Yeah.
that's that's sick though. That's you know, there's
It's
a lot of sickos out
terrible.
there, and but it devastated me,
Totally. I
not
mean,
just for
it's like,
myself, but for the potential harm that they could do to my loved ones, people that I care about.
yeah, it's horrible to be living in that kind of fear, and it over books. Like I understand in some ways, because I'm like, of course, like books are so powerful. Like so actually, yes, of course, this is something that when people are controlling, that's what they're going to go for. But at the same time, you're like, I'm getting death threats because I'm advocating that books should exist. I thought that was wild. I can't imagine living in that type of fear. And the other thing is, like, sometimes you hear this conversation around banned books where you're like, is it like a badge of honor? And you're like, no, it is not a badge of honor that my books got banned. And I think similar to your story, some people, it might be easy to look at it, even like you're saying, some of the people like thought you were going after fame. Like, excuse me, what? Like, this is not how I would go about it if I wanted fame. Like, it's insane.
I posted just yesterday. I posted. I was nominated for. I was made a finalist for Louisianian of the Year or
Oh
something,
wow.
and I posted online yesterday. I traded all in. Like
Yeah.
I was named a Time Magazine 100 Next Person of the Year. Like I would trade that. I would trade the book. I would
Right.
trade it all in if they would stop harassing libraries, library workers, and stop
Mhm.
trying to erase people and stories. And
Mhm.
I would trade all that in and go back to being, you know, in the
Right.
shadows. Like
Yeah.
do they think I like, you know, living in a community where half the community thinks I'm a pedophile groomer for nothing I've ever done, going and doing my living, you know, trying to do the best I can for kids during the day. I come home, I probably do 2 or 3 interviews or podcasts a day.
Oh wow.
During the school year, I fly on
Mhm.
the weekends to other states, even other countries, to spread the
Mhm.
message. I am tired. Do people
I'm
think
sure.
I want to do this? I would
Yeah.
rather be sitting on my couch with my husband and my daughter, but
Yes.
that's not where we're at in the world. And
No.
so these people that say I'm seeking fame and for like what? I don't know what kind of fortune they think I'm getting out of speaking out. I don't get paid for
I know.
interviews.
I
So,
know.
you know, I don't know. I guess they think authors make tons of money. I don't know.
If-
We don't. I mean, I'm sure if
No.
you're like, you know, you're Ann Patchett, you
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you've or you're Stephen King, yeah, but
Yeah.
not Amanda Jones from small town Louisiana with her
I
one book.
know.
So
I think a lot of people have no clue how much authors don't make in most
yeah,
cases.
no clue. But again, I mean, I am privileged and I am
Mhm.
blessed for to have a
Mhm.
book, but I just want to get the message out. I'm not
Right.
I'm trying to protect kids and not just kids, they're grown-ups, they're library
Mhm.
grown-ups, as Michael Threets would
Yes.
say. Um,
Mhm.
Protect the library kids, the library grown-ups, the libraries themselves, and then protect the authors and the history and the
Mhm.
resources and the stories. And if some
Yeah.
people want to think I'm a bad person for that, that again, that's on them. Too bad.
Yeah, totally. That all of that was making me think about, I mean, a couple of things, but when you were in your trial, you kind of mentioned, which is crazy, part of why in the first round the defamation essentially got thrown out was because they designated you as a public figure, which
Oh
was like
yeah.
going into it, you're like, I'm not a public figure. Like you're saying, I'm
I mean,
Amanda Jones from a little parish in Louisiana. Like I'm not a
see
public
now.
figure.
I will concede now. I am a public figure. It's become out of
Right.
ridiculous, out of this world exposure. I am a public figure, but at the time, no.
And
No.
that's it was making me think I have a friend who's posted before about like especially like black activists during the civil rights era. It's sometimes we like post haste or like looking back on stuff, we're like, oh, that person just always felt like an activist, or like that person was like meant to be an activist. And it's like sometimes, actually, in a lot of cases, it's people who are just saying what they believed or trying to, in the case of marginalized non-white people in America, trying to say like I have a right to be a person and to have full rights basically. And so it's actually so common that like a lot of the people we think of that way, they weren't like born thinking like I'm a radical, I'm an activist, I'm like, that wasn't what happened. It just kind of happens over time. And it made me also think, you mentioned Martin Luther King's quote about the blueprint where he says like, this is not a direct quote, but basically when you discover your life's work, he says do it with passion and excellence, as if God Almighty called you at this particular moment in history to do it. I so powerful. I love that quote in general, but can, like you're saying, like you're tired, you're not doing this for fame. However, like you can't stop talking about it.
Yeah, I can't stop, but I refuse to stop
Mhm.
talking about it because I am coming from a place of love, and
Yes.
I talk about it when I don't have even when my voice runs out and my hair is falling
Mhm.
out in chunks,
Mhm.
which has happened. I still talk about it,
Yeah.
and that I once a year I go and listen to Martin Luther King Jr.'s the speech, what is his
Mhm.
life's blueprint, and how I think sometimes if you're born knowing that this is your life's work. Like I know I want to be a librarian. Like this is what I want. It's the best
Mhm.
job in the world, and I think it's a disservice to my community if I didn't try to do it as if God Almighty Himself had put me here to do this in this
Mhm.
set period in history. And I'm thinking about what you said about people are born thinking they're going to be this way. Um,
Mhm.
I've met the author George M. Johnson, author of All Boys Aren't Blue.
Mhm.
Been fortunate to be on a panel twice with George,
Oh.
and I am sure that when George was just writing about being their authentic self, you
Mm.
know, just expressing and putting just a beautiful work of art that expressed themselves, and George said, I didn't choose this fight chose me, and George then became an activist, and I'm
Mhm.
sure that George never set out to be that way.
Right.
They just wanted to be themselves, and
Right.
but same with, I think about Peter Parnell and Justin Richardson, who wrote In Tango Makes Three. They just set out to write a feel
I
good
know.
story about two male penguins. And
Yes.
now they're headed to the Supreme Court to defend the First Amendment for all of us. And
It's
I will
crazy.
never, we can never repay people like Justin and Peter and George
Mhm.
because unlike me, they actually are from a community of they're a part of a group of people who have been historically marginalized. And
Mhm.
so I just have the utmost respect for people like George and Peter and Justin and all of the people that are they're out there, the authors that are just
Right.
out there telling their story or other people's stories, and then they find themselves in the crosshairs. It's not
Yes.
fair, and I will speak
Yeah.
out about it.
Yeah. And you in the chapter, I love your chapter titles too. Are so
That was
like
a
it
favorite
added a
part.
levity to it almost. But your woman in the mirror chapter, I just found so inspiring because in a lot of things you talk about how, and I have learned a lot about this myself as well. It's like growing up in the education system that we did, like there wasn't a priority on, like I was something I was really realizing recently. I did all the English classes. I was in AP English, and then I'm like looking back on it, I'm like I did not read a single not white author that whole time. And so of course I wasn't aware of a lot of these things that were happening until recently. But what you're talking about with people who have been marginalized in that way, you also started to realize like we can't expect marginalized people to fight the fight and talk about everything because they're like it's them fighting against their own oppression. So it's like it's fantastic that there are marginalized people who write stuff, and like you're saying, they're not thinking it's like activism, they're thinking I'm just like writing about like memoir type essays or something like that. um but they can't win this battle. It has to be other people helping them as well. And I kind of similarly had that realization when this administration got reelected, where I was like, I'm white, I'm a female, I don't have children to worry about. You do, and you're still in your activism. But I was like, I'm white, I don't have children to be worried about. I'm my own boss, so no one can fight. Like there are so many reasons that I need to be talking about this because like you've said, like we can't expect the marginalized to speak about it. So can you kind of talk about like that part too? Like you're like, no, I am going to talk about it.
I um I have a tattoo on my wrist and it's P
Mm,
cubed. And
yeah.
so it stands for, it's a quote by author Samir Ahmed that says, use your power and privilege for purpose.
Mm,
And again, I get made fun of for saying I have privilege, but I do. There's a lot of privilege in being
yes.
white, straight, middle class, cisgender female.
Yep.
The only people that have more privilege than me would be people with a little more money or my male counterparts. And
Men. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, but I have been very blessed and I'm a very privileged person. And I think that um, it, it takes people like people that are being oppressed shouldn't have to speak out for their own existence. We should
Right.
all care. We should
Mm-hmm.
all care and we should all fight for it. And no, I don't like, I'll be honest, I don't like being a big face of this movement. I
Right.
don't. I don't like hearing myself talk and I don't like um but I'm going to do it because
Mm-hmm.
I have been given a platform. I was
Mm.
given it started back in 2021 when I was, even before all this happened, when I was
Oh
named
wow.
um, Librarian of the Year by School Library Journal. You're given a platform, and to
Mm-hmm.
not use it for good is such a waste. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if I no, I don't want to be in the spotlight, but the spotlight's on me. So if I went and hid in the
Mm-hmm.
shadows, what a waste, you
Mm-hmm.
know? What a waste. And so I have to put my big girl underwear on and go
Yes.
out there and do things I don't want to do and be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And because everybody deserves, we're all humans. We're all
Mm-hmm.
humans. And we
Yes.
all need to start loving one another. We're in a horrific point in our country right now, not just with book bans, but with so many human rights and other issues. And we
Yeah.
got there because of hate. We
Yeah.
got there. We are here because of hate and
A lot of hate and a lot of greed.
greed and hate and we have to turn it around. And the only
Mm-hmm.
way we can do that is that we have to use our voices and
Mm-hmm.
we have to advocate. As Stacey Abrams would say, we must advocate with empathy.
Yes.
And so I know I don't like these people.
Yeah.
I have choice words, but
Yeah.
I'm under a microscope, and so
Yeah.
I am going to do what Stacey Abrams says and advocate with empathy, and I'm going to do what our former First
Yes.
Lady Michelle Obama says. And when they go low, I'll
Mm.
go high, and we have to push love and not hate,
Mhm.
because our country is just in a rotten spot right
It's
now.
heartbreaking. Yeah. Yeah, I think that empathy is so important, and it's so incredibly strange to me that there's, again, and within the Christian nationalist movement, there's a lot of talk about how empathy is toxic. And I'm
Right?
just like, I'm like, you really mean that? Like,
I mean,
what?
there is such thing as toxic positivity, but that's like
Yes.
not from a place like empathy is from the heart. You
Yes.
know, and empathy is from the heart. And who can fault someone for being loving and kind? I
I
guess white
know.
Christian nationalists can, because my
I guess
senator
so too.
again does it all the time.
I
Um,
hate it. It's
she, you
insane to
know,
me. Well, yeah,
she
and
actually.
go
Well,
ahead.
I'm
No,
not going
you're
to say.
fine.
I'm
Go
not going
ahead.
to say what
I'll
I was going to
remember it.
say. It's probably
um
unkind.
even with empathy, I know you said you went to therapy as well. I did like 7 or 8 years of therapy in my 20s. And even if you're very empathetic, there's also still room for having boundaries so that you don't feel the weight of everyone all
Hmm.
the time.
Yeah.
That's still not saying that it's toxic that it's toxic to have empathy. It's just like learning how to like not get overwhelmed by it, basically.
And I find a lot of librarians are very empathetic
I
because
bet,
you
yeah.
tend to go. Because I've met actually I've met thousands of librarians over the past few years from all my travels, and they
Mm-hmm.
all have the same thing in common is that they all tend to be empathetic people.
I love that.
And I'm finding that that's being preyed upon,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
what a
yeah.
shame, you know, what a
I
shame.
know.
And then when they are empathetic and kind, the weight that librarians are feeling right now,
I bet.
the weight of the world, and it shouldn't be that way.
And funding is getting cut massively, federal funding at least. And
Well,
like,
that's a good point. I
mm-hmm,
did want to mention to you that like when they
mm-hmm,
start these book bans, it is about the
mm-hmm.
books and it is about oppressing people and taking out history, but um a lot of it from that's coming from politicians, there is this, it's because they want to defund. They
Yes.
do want to defund public schools, they want to defund public libraries, they want to
Yeah.
privatize everything because it goes back to greed and money.
Yeah.
And I wish
Like,
people would see through that, that it's
I
not
do
always about the
too.
books. Because we saw that very, very early in our community. They pivoted. Once they saw they weren't getting anywhere with us with the books, then they pivoted and they started
Mm-hmm.
trying to defund our
Yeah.
library. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I
And it's
thought your cause
happening.
was the books and protecting children, but now your cause is to completely eradicate the library.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you
I know.
know,
And they're trying, I mean, they around election time, I had some people where I was surprised by the conversations I was having with them. I had them telling me like he's not going to do Project 2025. That's not him. And I'm like, I think it is. And now I believe like statistically, people, you can go look it up. I think about 65% of Project 2025 has happened by the end of 2025. So much so that the Heritage Foundation has put out their 2026 goals, which are just as alarming. And they're trying to completely eradicate the Department of Education. It's
yeah,
crazy.
I wrote an essay for Time
Oh,
Magazine back in like October before the presidential election,
yep.
and I said the fate of this election will determine, or this election will determine the fate of libraries. And people were like, "Amanda, that's so
You're
ridiculous. That's so
extreme.
nonsense." And I kept pointing out that libraries are mentioned on page 5 in Project 20. They start right from the
Yes.
beginning with libraries, and I people were like, "No,
Yeah.
that's nonsense."
Oh,
The very
I might have
first thing
frozen.
when this person was the very first thing, one of the very first things this person did as president was
Yes.
try to eliminate the Institute of Museums and Library Services and cut 200 and something, close to $300 million in grant funding to our library systems.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me that libraries aren't under attack.
I know.
You know,
Yes. And it's another thing historically. We, as a people, burning libraries is one of the, or eradicating them in some ways, is one of the first stages of fascism, because having an uneducated population, which is like has even been my experience, I've now kind of like, I consider it my continuing education, is like filling in all the gaps that were not taught to me. The more uneducated you are, the more you're not going to care about what might be happening to other people.
a dumber society is an easier led society.
Mm-hmm. And it's heartbreaking that that is something that anyone would want.
Well, and what it's going to affect, or who it's going to affect, is the most vulnerable in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
So people who might be they say, oh, it doesn't matter to me because I'm white, straight, Christian,
Right.
cisgender. It doesn't matter to me. But it's
Mm-hmm.
eventually going to matter to you, because
It will.
in my community, the poorest areas of our community are where white, straight, cisgender people are living in
Yeah.
poverty, and they're going to lose their Wi-Fi, and they're going to lose their
Mm-hmm.
resources and their programming, and they're going to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones that's going to suffer. The rich people
Mm-hmm.
aren't going to be the ones that are going to suffer. The people with no money are going to be the ones that
Yeah.
don't suffer. And then how do you get an education when the library's not there, and there's no more financial aid, and there's a dumber
I
society? Is an
know.
easier-led society. People vote against their own interests every
That's
single
what I was gonna
day.
say. That is the terrifying part, that like this administration so effectively convinced people to vote against themselves by like fear mongering. I mean, really just fear mongering. That's almost it. Like it was just
And
like,
lies. Just
yeah.
lies. And even if you don't want to help yourself, do you
Hmm.
not want to help your future? Like
I
your
know.
children or your grandchildren or your best friend's children and grandchildren or your nieces and
No.
nephews. And
Hmm.
I don't,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. There's a lot of sadness around this issue,
There is.
and
I
anger that
know.
I have. And, but
Same.
there's also, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, because,
Right.
um, as we've seen in Louisiana, they went too far too fast with the attacks
Yes.
on libraries. So we are seeing the pendulum swing back in
That's
Louisiana.
good.
And I
Hmm.
can only hope that the rest of the country. I mean, we're not there yet. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
We're not a utopia for libraries by any stretch of the
No.
imagination here in Louisiana, but I see the pendulum shifting.
Yeah.
And so, and that is why I am here, to help
Hmm.
push that pendulum in the right direction.
Right. Yes, I
Hopefully.
am very happy that we have people like you. I think it's important for us all to, those of us who are feeling like, oh my God, what is happening? It's so important to find each other too, so that we don't
Yes.
just completely lose hope. Because you even point out there's a really good chance that the most hateful people are the loudest, not the largest group of the
Oh yeah, they're
population.
absolutely not the largest. I mean, I look at all the studies that Penn America and like every library
Mhm.
and ALA have done, and majority of people trust libraries. The
Yeah.
majority of people in our country are against censorship. It's just that
Hmm.
some of these people are so loud, and then they use these tactics by completely harassing and trying to destroy people's lives. Anyone who wants to speak out, that
Right.
it's not as openly talked about because people are scared. But I think the majority of our country loves libraries and and loves
Yeah.
the First Amendment and is against censorship.
Yes. Well, I know you have a chapter where you talk about things that people can do, but for anyone who's listening and maybe hasn't read it yet, what are some things that maybe are even just very accessible ways to support libraries?
The easiest, absolutely easiest thing to do is, if you don't have a library card, go get one. If you have
Hmm.
one, go renew it.
Hmm.
Check those books out, check those resources out. And people say, well, how does that help? Because libraries do end of the year statistics, and they do audits, and so when libraries are being coming up for funding, and people are trying to ban books, librarians can show statistics and say, well, in my community, I think it's like 80% or something have library cards. So no,
Wow.
the community is not against libraries. And
Yeah.
every year since the war on libraries in our community started, our library statistics have grown in usage checkouts. So we're able to say, look, if you don't like it,
Hmm.
why are you all checking out books? So
Yes.
the biggest and best thing you can do, download ebooks, audiobooks, go and check out those physical spaces. Go see what your library has to offer. We have telescopes, cake pans, 3D
There are a
engraver.
lot
We
of
have
3D printers
3D
in
printers and
libraries. Yeah.
engravers, and we even have cultural passes. You're a family of four and you want to go to a museum, go check out
Hmm.
cultural passes. You can go for free. Um,
Yeah.
and so do that. The second thing I would say is you've got to pay attention. Maybe you
Hmm.
don't want to go and speak out at a meeting like I do,
Right.
but pay attention and spread the word. Hey, did you know that they're trying to cut funding? Like, spread the word, and then
Hmm.
go to those meetings. You don't have to
Yeah.
speak. You could sit and you could
Hmm.
clap when you agree, and you can. I mean,
Yes.
don't boo when you
Just do
don't,
that.
but clap.
Yes.
And it. And if you're listening, people who are listening today, sit down today and write a letter to a
Yeah.
librarian. a school librarian or a public
Yes.
librarian, because we're feeling it.
I
And
know.
if I have a whole binder of thousands of
Hmm.
cards and things that people have sent me, and that's what gets me through. So reach
Hmm.
out; it makes a difference.
Yeah. I loved how you talked about like if you see positive comments like about librarians, you'll like message that person and be like, please tell this librarian how much they meant to you. Like it's so
It's
important.
so important, and as much negativity as I've had in my own community, I have had
Hmm.
my It's a Wonderful Life moment,
Mm-hmm.
because the amount of children who are
Hmm.
not children anymore. Again, I would like to preface that I am not communicating with minors. These are kids I
Be
taught. Like
clear.
my oldest students are like 37.
Wow.
Yeah, because I started at 22 and I taught
Wow.
14-year-olds. And so they're, 37, 38, whatever. Um, so people that I've taught so many have reached out to me to tell me what I've meant to them.
Mm,
People, you can never take that away from me. And these
no.
people that are pushing book bans, they're not receiving that.
Don't
You
think
don't
so.
you don't get that when you push out hate. So
Mm-mm.
take the time to reach out to someone that meant a lot to you, a librarian or a teacher or whoever,
Mhm.
because it means the world to us. And it helps
Yes.
keep us moving forward and fighting the good fight.
Yes. Yep. Everybody go message some librarian. I'm assuming most people who listen to this my throat's just closing on me. Who listen to this probably had an experience with a librarian that was really good because you're probably a reader. So
And
I'm
I
just
did reach
very
out to mine. I reached
oh
out to
yeah.
Dr. Shirley McDonald.
Oh
When this all happened to me, it made me realize, and I reached out to her, and she became Dr. McDonald, and she's actually a professor of library science students now. And so,
oh
reach out to those people. It means a lot to them.
yes. Yes. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for coming here to talk about it. And hopefully, I think it's important to remember sometimes that's what reading nonfiction helps me with. We do go through cycles. And so I do hope eventually we're going to see a very different experience and conversation about libraries moving forward.
I hope so, but it's going to take a lot of people joining
Yes.
together. But I think that's happening. So I have hope for the future.
Yeah.
I have a lot of
Yeah.
hope in my heart. So
Yeah. We don't want to give up on
don't
that.
want to give up on that. But I thank you for having me and allowing me to
Yes.
talk about this very, very important topic that is just
Yes.
near and dear to me, but I think near and dear to a lot of people in our country.
Yeah. Yeah. I when I realized like the timing of this, it'll be like my first episode of 2026. I was like, I think that's setting the tone right.
Good positivity into the future and
Yes.
collectively. I like to use the hashtag better together because collectively we're all
Yes.
better together. So
We are.
we're better together. And we just have to keep that in mind. And let's hope for a good 2020. Let's hope this is the year we're going to get at least a few more bills that are anti book
Yes.
banning on the books across our country.